You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast. Stories of overcoming obstacles and finding self-empowerment with Sherisse Bisram, Inner Power Activation Leader. The Oxford Dictionary describes permission as the action of officially allowing someone to do a particular thing, consent, authorization. What if you were that someone and you gave yourself the permission to be everything you wanted to be and more? No more playing small and accepting less than. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, regardless of what it is that you've been through. And honestly, it's exactly what you've been through that has shaped you into the version of yourself that you are now. Like a diamond, you've endured so much, but instead of breaking, you have become stronger and brighter. And if that's not a reason to shine, then I don't know what is. And if nature can do it, then why the hell can't you? You are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, and you are enough. Hear my call and give yourself the permission to shine, because you don't realise how many people are inspired by your light. Hi everyone, this is episode 46 and I'm so excited to introduce the amazing Fiona today. And Fiona was recommended to me by Jenny, who is another friend of the podcast, who has her own podcast, which I've been on as well, the Drama Dialogue. So yeah, I'm super excited to welcome you in, Fiona, because I've heard amazing things about you. So please tell the audience about yourself.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. So where to start? Let's start with now. So I'm currently in Ecuador, where I'm creating a life that I'm actually really loving living and enjoying shining in. Actually, I've had a kind of a bit of a difficult time over COVID, and then I had a dental process, and then when all of that was over, I was like, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And my whole life had kind of collapsed, and so I chose to fly to Colombia, very obvious choice, and then I've ended up in Ecuador, in this beautiful high altitude city, and I'm learning to dance, and I'm learning Spanish, and I'm just meeting loads of people, and just in a way, just kind of mega socializing after all this time of hiding away.
Yes.
And
I love that so much. But yeah, no, tell us about what your title is now, and then we'll go backwards and work our way forward. So what do you call yourself, and how do people know you?
Yeah, so now I have a business called Sex and the Shy Girl, and it kind of came from the same energy as just suddenly choosing to go to Colombia. It's like my whole life had collapsed, and I knew that I didn't want to do exactly what I was doing before. And for a while, I thought I didn't want to be a coach at all. And then suddenly it was like the name came first, and I was like, oh, that business and that energy of sex and shyness, which is totally my story. I mean, I was shy with everything, but I think particularly when you look at sex and shyness, or I mean, even if you're not shy, to have the courage and the guts to look at how you are sexually is probably one of the most difficult things. And so what I'm finding is that, as I said, this time last year, the name came to me first. And then as I started to build the business, I'm getting more awareness of what it actually is. And I think at the beginning, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if some more shy girls can have better sex? And then I realized that, as I just said, it's like when you start to look at sex and sexuality and what's true for you, and particularly when you've been a shy girl, when you get to the point where you can actually express to your partner, hey, this is how I am. And it's like, in my opinion, and, you know, if you're listening to this and you're a man, I'm probably not talking to you, but in my opinion, it's like the way that sex normally is on this planet has become very male dominated. And I think a lot of men find that upsetting. And, you know, I'm not saying that everybody is like that, but I know for me, I guess when I imagined sex before I had it, it was very different from how I then experienced it. And I've had to get clear on what I love and start to be able to express that. And I think that when women, particularly shy women, start to step into that and start to do that, it's a total empowerment of women, and it changes their whole lives. So it's turned out to be a much bigger thing than I ever thought it was this time last year.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I love all of it. I love the fact that you're in Ecuador. I love the fact you're going to be dancing and in Spanish. I mean, that is kind of, my bag completely. And, if I could literally pick my life up and go to Ecuador right now, I absolutely would too. So yes to you for all of that. And I love the name of your business. I think it's incredible. And that just isn't spoken about enough, this like sexual empowerment for women. It's such an important thing, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's like when you know what you want and you're comfortable to say and ask for it, that's when things change. But we're not conditioned societally to be able to have that space to do it. So it's really great to hear that you are holding this space, and I'm so excited to dive into this because I actually didn't know which way the podcast was go, but I haven't had a guest really talk about sex before. So here we are. Let's go. Tell us about your journey to, where you are now.
Yeah, sure. So I was a shy girl. I was shy with everything. And so it wasn't just sex. It's like for me, even as a young adult, it was hard for me to be in a room. You know that situation when you're in a room and everyone has to say their name, and it's like even to say my name was excruciating for me. And when I look at it, it's like it was a lot caused by the way that my dad treated me. So he was very domineering. He wasn't physically abusive. He certainly wasn't sexually abusive, but he was very verbally abusive. That whole thing of you're going to amount to nothing, and I just got, and I mean, everybody's shyness story is different, but I think a lot of people can have this experience with one of their parents or a significant person in their life that they're very diminished, and they learn that the best thing to do is basically to shut up, hide, go below the radar, and actually be perfect. I mean, and so this is where I kind of created my life for my dad and not for me. My dad was a banker. I became an accountant, and I kind of forced, and I was clever. It's like, so I forced myself to do all the stuff, go to university, get a good job, and then at a certain point, everything just collapsed. And then a little bit later, it collapsed even more. Even more dramatically. I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and literally, it felt like from one day to the next, my whole life just was taken away from me. And when I look back on it, I can see that like I said, I was actually still living the life that my dad wanted me to live. And, when you're doing that, it's never going to work. There's always going to be something that comes in. For me, it was fatigue. For other people, it can be cancer. And then it was interesting because at first I was already interested in holistics, but it was almost like I thought I could take a homeopathic remedy in the same way as I could take an aspirin, and I would take a remedy and it would all be over and I wouldn't have to look at what was really causing it. And it probably took me about 3 years to realize that I really needed to look at me and my choices. And that was the point at which I found out about energy healing, and I started to train in that. And I mean, I discovered that my lack of energy was really caused by not loving my life and by being totally in my head. It's like I was good at making myself be in my head. But over this 3 years of energy healing, I discovered that I love to sing, I love to dance, I love to move. And it wasn't, and I say that, it was really hard. It's like I thought that I didn't like to sing. I thought I didn't like to dance. I thought I hated people looking at me. And it's often that thing, that the thing that's really true for you can be the hardest to acknowledge and step into. And so I started to dance and sing, and from that space, it was kind of like the next step to look at sexual empowerment, because I realized that although as a teenager and a 20-something, I'd had all these insights in a way of what could be possible with sex, and then when it didn't happen, I didn't, and I had that pattern of looking to my partner, looking to the man I was with to help me with that. And of course, you have to claim it yourself, so nobody else can do it for you. So I started to look at what was really true for me with sex. And And it was it's funny, isn't it, with these journeys? It's like sometimes it's so in your face, that's a technical term, so in your face what you're doing to limit yourself, and yet you somehow can't change it. And it can be for me, and I think for a lot of shy girls, actually a reframe is to say that we're sensitive. And so to have the guts as somebody who's sensitive to look at sex is really, really quite full on demand. And I guess I was willing to do it because I did have this sense that there should be something more possible with sex and pleasure and bodies and connection. And so sort of one step at a time, I was willing to, in a way, seek out safe spaces. And that included going to Tantra festivals. It included in time training as a sexological body worker, but finding safe spaces where I could explore what's true for me. And one thing that I know is true is that all of the shy girls who work with me, whilst there's a kind of a pattern and there is a framework that I take people through, actually we're all so different. And, and I think I kind of thought, well, if I'm shy and when I heal that shyness, I'm going to become some kind of vixen in the bedroom. And it's like, no, actually what it means is that I have clarity what's true for me. And maybe some days I am more like that, but other days I may like my partner to take the lead. And that's not a wrongness. It's like, if that's what you like, and a lot of shy, sensitive girls do like that, that's not a wrongness. It's just a reflection of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I'll dive in a little bit more on some of the things that you've mentioned. So I wanted to give you as much space as possible so we got the full picture of who you are. So obviously I don't love the fact that obviously you had such a hard time from your dad, because obviously that obviously isn't comfortable, but equally it's obviously shaped your journey into who you are now, which obviously is all part of, the work that I talk about. Is that unlearning, isn't it? So I guess, for you, when you were able to kind of see that it was physically materializing, which it does for so many people when they don't realize, when you're living in autopilot in the shadow of someone else, I think, the body is literally trying to scream at you, what are you doing? This isn't your life. And I think that's, so powerful. So for anyone that, is finding themselves with physical illnesses, it is connected, like it's all interconnected. The body keeps the score. I say it all the time, and it really is that, even down to just getting a cold, that's your body's way of saying that you're run down, you need to take a break. It's all of these really deep rooted things. And yeah, I love how you kind of decided to go in a spiritual route, because I kind of think that that's always been my calling as well, is that there's something more here, like the energy and all of that. So I love that, and I want to dive more into that in a moment. But the main theme of the podcast is the permission to shine, and I just want to know, what was like the pivotal moment in your life where you felt like you really did start to give yourself that permission to shine?
So I would say it's happened at several points, and actually the kind of the last time was after before COVID. I had an in-person self-development business, and I was happily going around Europe teaching classes, and then it all just crashed from one day to the next. I had quite an isolated time, and then I had a long dental process, and it was like at the end I was like, I can't live this enclosed small life anymore, and it was a big risk in a way, financially as well as everything else, because it would have been much easier to just kind of, I don't know, hunker down and try and live a small life. And I was like, no. And that's when I chose to come to Colombia, learn to dance, then followed by Ecuador. So that was kind of my latest choice to shine. I guess other ones have been when I came out of chronic fatigue syndrome. In a way, it was similar. It's like I got to in a way, a very, very similar point. If this is all there is to life, it's like, if my life truly is just sitting in this house feeling crappy, actually, it's not good enough for me. And I guess when I actually met an energy healer who was she was just able to tell me things about myself that she couldn't have known, that she must have intuited. And I just knew after spending like an hour and a half with her and having a session and feeling completely different that I needed to be an energy healer. And at that point, I was an accountant who had no idea what an energy healer was, but I just knew. And that also was, I guess, the beginning of starting to shine, because it's like that work. And you mentioned the spiritual work. It does really bring people to the essence of who they are, and we all shine in different ways. And the work I was doing then with energy healing, and definitely this work that I'm doing now with sex and shy ladies, does lead to people shining.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think I can always find like a moment in people's stories where it really was that, you know, like enough's enough, or what can I do differently? And it's always that decision, that risk, that scary moment that really does change the trajectory of everyone's life, you know. And I think we just have to be bold enough and brave enough to take it and to listen to those little nudges. Absolutely that. So I guess now let's dive more into the work that you're doing. And yeah, Sex and the Shy Girl. I love, as I said, the title. And yeah, I just love to know kind of how that intersected for you, because you kind of briefly touched upon how you know, you kind of were living in one way, the energy healing's opened you up. Was it the energy healing that made you then aware of the fact that you wasn't enjoying yourself sexually too? Was it that, or you know, there must be another way? So please explain that kind of that interconnection as well.
Yeah, I think what it is that the energy healing work that I was doing just in the end, the purpose of it is to make you aware of who you are. And I think I think it started to remind me of what I'd known as a teenager and a 20-something, that something different must be possible. And it's funny because the work that I do is about sex, but of course, and pleasure. But what tends to happen is that people are like, oh, I have my life, and then somewhere over here I have sex, you know, and I like sex, but actually it's a bit dirty and in the background, and it's not really integrated into my life. So what I started to become aware of was that actually sex can be part of our life. We don't have to judge it and have it in the background. But when you do have sex as part of your life, you can step into what I love to call orgasmic living. And so this is a space where it's not just like, oh, it's Friday night and it's sex night and I'm going to have some pleasure. It's like, oh, it's like I just had a delicious fruit breakfast. So here in Ecuador, we have really delicious fruit. That can be, when you're present with eating, that can be an orgasmic experience. The same with walking down the road with the sun on your face. It's like, oh, that can be really enjoyable. So I think I always had a sense of that which was in a way maybe why I annoyed my dad, and he kind of started to sort of try and keep me down, because I think I probably came into the world as a very happy kid, as a lot of us do, and then it's kind of like, what's going on this strange planet? It's like, why aren't people having fun? Why aren't people enjoying their bodies? And not just enjoying their bodies with sex, but we have these bodies, why not enjoy them every moment? And so that's kind of part of the equation. It's like, although it is about sex, it's actually about pleasure much more widely than sex as well.
I love that. And it's like the sensuality, isn't it, of, you know, experiencing life. And I fully get that, because my background has been, I was a professional dancer for 11 years and I still teach now. And, you know, for me, that's something that one of the classes I teach is sexy R&B. And my whole ethos with that class is for us to just feel connected to ourselves, you know. It's a safe space for us to be able to explore our bodies in a really comfortable way, and for what feels good for us. And for me, I sort of say that sexy looks different on all of us, but it's sexy as a feeling, you know. So, you know, I always say, don't dance like me, dance like you. It's the exploration of self, which ultimately is kind of, I think, what you're saying here. And it can be found in everything, you know. And I think that's really the beautiful thing about, we're talking about these energy spaces, is that like in the present moment there's so much richness and fulfillment that could be found. And I think if we get out of our own way, out of our own heads, and the mundanity of life, there's actually so much like beauty and experience that can be had. So I fully get what you're saying there in terms of orgasmic living. And when you first said it, I was like, whoa, that sounds great. And then I was like, yeah, actually, that really is a thing, like we can find that in everything, like even when I'm taking my clients through work and trying to get them to be more grounded and present, I'm like, have your favorite cup of coffee, sit down for a moment and just be, that could be
Yes.
one of those moments too. And I think, yeah, super, super powerful. So I love how, this isn't just about sex and its physicality and its animalistic thing. It's actually so much more broader than that, which is so beautiful as well, because I believe that how we do one thing is how we do everything. So
Yeah.
everything for me comes down to that self-worth piece. So when we can build our self-worth in a really deep and rich way, that then sort of pours out onto everything we do, including, our interactions and intimate relationships. And I think when you feel confident in yourself and know what it is you like and want, I guess then in turn, obviously, that's where you elevate that through the physical act of sex as well. So
Yes.
I'd love to know what kind of how you walk your clients through that journey as well, like in a very loose way, so we get an idea of, if anyone's listening thinking, oh, I need to speak to you, like how does that work in your
Yes.
world?
Yes. So I think I said this already, but every shy girl is different. Every lady who's shy with sex will in some ways have a different path. But what I've discovered is that there are 3 elements that really everybody needs to go through in their own way. And I actually call them foreplay, me play, and us play. So we start off with what I call foreplay. And so that is literally getting the ladies, and actually I'll talk about me, it's like for me, when I actually got ill, I was so disconnected from my body. And it's like the ladies who come to me are in very different spaces. It's like I'm working with a lady now who's already pretty connected with her body, but there's always more. And so literally we start off by doing some exercises and things that I learned in energy healing school that actually allow you to really, really inhabit your body and start to allow you to relax into your body. I mean, I was so I wouldn't have known what the term relaxation with the body was. It's like, and I always had a very beautiful body actually, but it was almost like I was separate from her. And the fact is that it doesn't matter how beautiful in terms of what's commonly considered beautiful you are, that's not actually the marker for how much pleasure you can feel. It's like I was totally outside of my body, kind of in my head doing my accounting thing. And it didn't matter that people thought I had a nice body. And so that's where we start, actually coming into the body, being relaxed. And it's interesting, you talk about dancing. It's like starting to actually move, starting to find music that you love and actually being present. Looking at even at the clothes you wear, it's like often we're just told to, you'll wear this, you'll wear that. And then we kind of do that to ourselves. Oh, I'm going to wear something practical. Oh, I don't have much money, I'll wear this. And it's like our bodies actually express themselves through the clothes that we wear. And so starting to become aware of that is another level of being in your body. And same with food. It's like we tend to go to, I'll do this diet because it's good for me. And it's like, that has nothing to do with what your body actually desires. And sometimes you can eat, if you're looking to lose weight, you can eat a diet which is what your body desires, but isn't what the diet experts would tell you should be eating. And your body feels happy and starts to lose a bit of weight. It's like it's all so we start to kind of move into that realm, and I call that foreplay. And I think the advantage of that as well is, like, if you're shy with sex, it can be the hardest thing in the world to even come into my Facebook group. So actually, when I start working one-to-one or in groups with ladies, to actually have this space where we just kind of build up trust. Because I think the other thing with shyness, sensitivity, and with sex is that there needs to be a high level of trust to be able to go inside and do this work. So that also has the advantage of building up some trust with me. And then we move into what I call me play. And this is literally becoming acquainted with our bodies, sensually and sexually. And I give ladies different exercises. And we start off by looking at, well, what it is to be naked. Do we enjoy being naked? Does it bring up stuff for us? And we do different exercises that start to get us comfortable with feeling naked and being seen to be naked. It's like there are two aspects to it. It's like some people just really enjoy the feel of it, but if they see themselves in a mirror, they're like, ah! And so we look at both aspects of that. And then we do some orgasmic yoga exercises. And I mean, I think if you're an outsider looking in, the best way to describe it is mindful masturbation. But masturbation gets such a bad rap, and it's not really what we're doing. It's like what we're doing is starting to become acquainted with our own bodies. And here's the thing, one of the things that I was aware of as a teenager was that my whole body could be an erotic zone. Erogenous zone. I don't think I'd have put those words to it, but I just knew that I could have pleasure in my whole body. And sex is generally so genital focused. And so we start to look at the whole body, see what kind of touch all of our body enjoys, see which places are erogenous for us. And we also do some exercises which can take the sexual energy that we have in our genitals and our breasts and start to move it to the rest of our bodies. So it's like there are different ways of kind of encouraging that pleasure in all of our bodies. So we play with that. And well, actually, I've forgotten to say one important thing. So I've told you all about the exercises we're doing to step into the pleasure. I also do a lot of release work. So in order to be able to actually love your body, be in your body, and particularly in order to be able to do an exercise, which most people would say is basically masturbation, it brings up masses of stuff in our heads, all the conditioning from our grandma, and probably we're all told in some way masturbation is bad. We have all this stuff around being a woman and it's like the list is endless of all the points of view we have in our head. So I also do a lot of release work of the points of view, because here's the thing, if you're still carrying some kind of belief from age 2 when your mum kind of told you not to touch that thing or whatever, it's still going to be there, stopping the pleasure that's possible. So I do a lot of that kind of release work of points of view, as well as the kind of invitation to the body to step into the yumminess. Okay, so that's the second part. And then the third part is what I call we play. And here's the thing, so we're actually one of my male friends was like, oh, so are you shy girls just kind of amusing yourselves and you never actually have a partner? And I'm like, no, that's not quite it. But actually, we have to be comfortable in our own bodies. We have to know what turns us on. Or I say we have to. It's like I know for myself, and I think a lot of early sexual experiences are like this. And some people have sex like this all their lives. It's like one person who isn't in their body and doesn't know much about sex gets together with another person who isn't in their body, doesn't know much about sex. Neither of them knows what, particularly the woman tends not to know what turns them on. I think often men do know, but it's like particularly the woman doesn't know. And it's like that combination of two people not really in their bodies, it can just go downhill very quickly. And so there you are, shy, sensitive girl, you've done all this work on yourself, you're in your body. And here's the thing as well, that all the work in the first 2 stages, it is about getting to know your body. It is about finding out what turns you on, but it actually leads to really starting to like or even love your body. It's like spending all that time just with yourself. It's like it's an act of love for yourself. And so when you come to be with your partner, or you come to go on a date, whatever it is, you have this kind of much more certainty about who you are. And it's a very, very different place to actually be with a partner or to go looking for a partner. And this is a space where I remember when I was younger, I was like, but I'm so pretty. Why do some of the not so pretty girls get the good guys? And it was like, well, those not so pretty girls, and that's a total judgment, by the way, but those girls actually love themselves in a way that I didn't. It's like, so you start to attract the partners who can match you. I'm going to say emotionally, spiritually, physically, everythingly. It's like that's just the way it works. When you don't love yourself, you're likely to attract someone who doesn't love themselves and isn't going to love you anyway. So you're already in a better position just from the get-go, but you also have discovered what you love, and you have built up a confidence where you're. And I don't quite know how this happens, but at a certain point, the girls start to be willing to share what they like sexually. And in the same way as when the ladies are exploring their own bodies, what can occur when they're with another person is that it becomes a mutual exploration. Oh, here's this body. I've just spent some time exploring my body. Let's see, is this bit the bit that turns him on? And it's like it takes away that space where sex is just about, oh, we have to orgasm. How do I get to her to orgasm? It takes away all of that. But also, because the ladies have been doing this work on kind of waking up their whole bodies, it's very natural that, yes, the climactic orgasm, when it comes, is likely to be stronger and longer and involve the whole body, but it's kind of not the important thing. It's like, it's the exploration, it's the journey, it's the fun. It's like sex and touching should be fun. And often when you're focused on orgasm, it's like, even if you have a good relationship outside of the bedroom, if you're very focused on orgasm, actually it takes the fun out of connection. I'm talking and talking. I'm going to stop
Yes,
now.
no. I wanted to get to the end of it because I felt like we were
Yes.
building it up, and I'm sure the audience would be like, if I started talking, they'd be like, Sherisse, shut up. We want to hear. So yeah, no, I love that. I love the names. I think it's incredible, and I love how you have a word play, but also it very much is what it says on the tin as well, which is amazing. And I think, you know, when you added in the release part, that's absolutely it, because in all of the work I do, that's a massive part of it. You know, in order for us to receive what it is we want, we have to let go of what it is we don't want energetically, and that's absolutely essential, isn't it, you know, in this work. So I love that for sure. And I love the fact that you're creating a safe space in the client's body first, in order for them to then invite that in from another person. And I think that that's just the fundamental thing. And I even look at my own journey in my healing space, and like how I've evolved, you know, from, you know, traumatized spaces. And actually what you're saying is very much kind of what I've done myself without realizing, you know, like in like just feeling safe in my own body and feeling comfortable in my femininity. That was a massive step for me, because I'd lived so much in my masculine my whole life, that when I decided that I wanted to heal, softening and opening and blossoming is all kind of the things I had to allow in first, before yeah, kind of accepting all of that in however that looks in my life, you know, but also in relationships too. So I think that you've hit like a really important nail on the head there. And I think for a lot of women and people, I think sex has always been quite a mechanical exchange. And like what you're explaining to me is, again, that sensuality and that whole full experience that can be just enjoyed. You know, you don't necessarily need to get to the point where you're actually having physical sex. It's just the enjoyment and the intimacy, isn't it, almost, of your own body, but also that with another as well, and how that can be explored even through having meals together, and, you know, all of that. So I love this whole thing about, it's making it like a 4D experience, isn't it? Because it's like all of your senses are activated. And I think that's the real beautiful space of being as well, which we don't get to really living if we're pushing forward at 100 miles an hour, you know, so this space, this beautiful space you're talking about, like this almost like Garden of Eden energy is almost in the stillness. And I think that's kind of what I'm really reaching from what you're saying. And even I'm guessing from the shy girls that work with you, maybe they've worked in corporate for a long time, maybe they've done, you know, the jobs I hadn't wanted to do similar to you, and or just really played small in their lives and now realizing that actually I deserve more. And I think that deserving part probably played a massive part in the work you're doing for sure.
Yes. Yeah. No, I just had this phrase in my head when I was talking about how a shy girl is likely to meet someone who, well, who's going to be kind to her. It's like it just came into my head. It's like sometimes when you do have somebody who's interested in you, who's actually kind, when you're not kind to you, you can't receive that kindness anyway. So it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. I
The
have
feminine.
learned to, yeah, I think a bit like you said, I have learned to prioritize, well, me and my body and kindness to me and my body. Yeah. And often, well, definitely not in the, I mean, I think things are changing, but, you know, when I was in the corporate world years ago, it's like, I think the idea of, I remember this actually, the idea of having a full life was that there'd be some kind of activities for you to do in the evening. So you'd be at work all day and then you'd go to a corporate activity, you know, you play table tennis or go drinking or whatever in the evening. So they put on things for you to do for you to feel that you had a full life, but it wasn't really the case.
Yeah. And it's that depletion, isn't it? You know, like when you're giving everything that you are to your job, to something else or someone else, there's no energy left for you. So it's that filling your cup up almost, isn't it? That's found in the stillness.
Yes.
But even that deservingness, like that is the feminine wound. You know, like when I do a lot of my work with my clients and stuff, that's like a mother wound of like not being able to receive. Like so many women, like you said, that you'll say you're beautiful to or whatever, they're like, oh no, or they try and give you a compliment back and you're like, just accept it. It's just okay to accept. But yeah, there's so much to that. And equally, like you said, you know, when you become that fuller version of you and that more accepting version of you, you then attract that in other people because that is just the vibration of the universe, isn't it? Is that you attract what you are. So that's why
Yes.
all of this work is so important, because if you do want more for your life, you have to first give that to yourself. You know, it's not going to come from an external space. So I think, yeah, that's just really, really important. And it's great to hear this work that you're doing because, yeah, again, it's just not spoken about enough. And I think if we were encouraged more at a younger age, even like early teens and 20s, like if we were seeing more healthy sex relationships on TV and, you know, empowerment like that, I think my example of that is probably similar to your name is like, you know, Sex in the City. You kind of saw Samantha being really promiscuous, and it was almost like she was taking a masculine energy approach to sex rather than it being like, again, what we're talking about, like this like beautiful space. And I think that even and I do think the times are changing 100%. I think the more like holistic ways of being are being put forward, even yoga and meditation, all of these things, which I love. But all of that was seemed a bit like woo woo and a bit like, oh, if you do that, then you're not a strong woman, you know, whereas actually there's a real beautiful intersect between you can be all of it. And I think that's kind of probably how so many of us, you know, mentors and coaches are moving forward in this space, especially if they're in true alignment to the work that they talk about, teach and embody, that this is the next stage for all of us, is that, you know, we can feel soft and feminine, but equally go and attack what it is we need to when we want to. And I think that that's when you hold all of the power, when you're not one or the other, but you're everything.
No, it's really interesting that you say it like that because I mean, I'm a very small person, and it's like I suppose people would look at me and think I was feminine when I was younger, but actually I kind of took on that mentality of you know, being in the corporate world and getting things done myself and masculinity, and it I mean, I think I do have an element of that. I mean, I guess to come and live in a foreign country, you have to have that kind of drive energy. But it's like I have a lot of the receptive, open, blossoming female energy too, which I wasn't willing to have or own in any way at all.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that a lot of us have that journey to finding that, like so many people I speak about, especially, mentors in this space, it's because we've wanted to be successful. That's been the drive, the masculine drive. But then actually, when you overcome that hurdle, you realize that success actually looks like peace and slower movement, like, and just the beingness. And I think that that's really wonderful. But I guess in this exploration of yourself and like your journey of becoming this empowered shy girl, what would you say the obstacles that you kind of have to face time and time again are? Like, what if someone's like going through this journey and they're finding the setbacks? What do you identify the setbacks are, and like kind of how do you move through them?
Yes, good question. So it's funny, I was having a discussion with somebody I've met here, and he was like, "You do know you're still shy." And I was like, "What?" And then I was like, "Oh, okay." And I realized that one of the obstacles that there can be is that we have this thing, sex and the shy girl, and now I'm teaching it, and I'm definitely not shy, that kind of thing. And it's like there are still times where I go to that kind of energy around a particular type of masculine energy, which is probably very like my dad was. And what I've learned is actually not to judge that. It's like and I've realized that there are people who look at me and they're like, "Oh, she's still shy." And it's like, "Oh, okay." It's like how can I put it? It's like these patterns come up again and again in different levels, and um, it's about not judging, but also about, I think, what I used to do when the shyness would come up for me again. I'd kind of overcompensate by sort of trying to turn myself into somebody I'm not at all, and actually the kind of answer, if you like, is to just come back to your body and to just to get, so it is like all I'm talking about is like, "Oh, I'm shy, and I'm so shy that I shouldn't be leading signs, and I shouldn't be going into," all that stuff is head stuff. And so the remedy is to kind of well, it's the same as I teach to the shy girls when they begin: come back to your body. Come back to your body and see if you can respond to the person who's kind of a trigger for you as you, not as the little girl from the past. But
No, I think that's so important. And I think as well that being shy isn't a bad thing. I think that, and also what I would describe shy as almost sometimes is just someone that's introverted. So I think that
yes,
you are absorbing what's happening before then reacting. And I think for us, like
yes,
I say, for me as an extrovert, I've been the opposite to that a lot in my life. That I've been super like reactive to things straight away. I didn't let things digest before actually responding. So I was reacting instead of responding. And actually that can be something that I do still now as a flaw for myself, is that sometimes I might react too quickly when I'm not in my body. So I think that that's such an important space to come back to yourself always. And there's always you're always allowed to pause, aren't you, to have a little bit of time in between if you want to.
yes,
And I think
yes.
for anyone, triggers don't disappear, like, I mean, there will be obviously massive ones that you heal, but we're never going to be just completely okay with everything. And actually, if you were okay with everything, that would be a flaw in itself, like you wouldn't want to be just completely passive to life. So I
No,
think,
no.
yeah, it's all part and parcel for sure with that space.
Yes, and just as you're talking, I realize that I love to reframe this shyness as sensitivity, because it's like I am ultra sensitive and a lot of shy girls are, and when that's not actually going to change, But what will change is, well, that it's almost like I'll talk about me, but I see it with the ladies I work with. It's almost as though I get to that space of, you know what? I am sensitive. I'm super sensitive. And I've taken these steps to get to know myself, to be in my body, to find out what's true for me. And I'm going to look after me. And so that means being really aware of definitely who I allow into my bedroom. And it's like, and I think it's almost like I thought that for me personally, sort of going through this journey, I'd be more able to have sex with all kinds of people if that's what I wanted. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily show up like that. And, you know, if that's what you want, then you can create that. But it's like, for me, it's almost like it's made me super aware of the type of person who I could actually be sexual with. And that takes into account my super sensitivity. And
yeah, for sure, that's like the real deep discernment, isn't it? And that knowing of self that will, you know, create that discernment as a byproduct, which I think is so important, because again, that women can be and often coerced into, you know, falling into that pattern. So I think that, yeah, when you have that safety in yourself, that then you again find it in someone else, but you can create that in every situation. And I think yeah, just creating boundaries, I think, as well, as a shy person, that could probably take a bit of work. So I think the fact that you build that with your clients to then be able to feel comfortable in themselves to say what it is they want and need, I think is such a powerful thing. And I always say to people, you know, confidence isn't always a shout, sometimes it's a whisper. And I think if you've been shy for a long time, you know, the idea of confidence, like I said, sounds really powerful and overbearing, but actually it's not. It's just, you know, standing completely in your body and yeah, knowing who you are, which I think is, yeah, really amazing that
yes.
this is the connection as well, for sure. So yeah, incredible. So if anyone wanted to work with you, what are the kind of packages you offer? How would people find you? All of the things.
Yes, yeah. So the place to find me is my Facebook group, which is very easy to find. It's called Sex and the Shy Girl. So that's the place where the stuff happens on a day-to-day basis. So it's a group that's free to join, and I share insights and stuff in the group. And then in terms of working privately with me, I have a 12-week program which literally goes through those steps that I talked about. And so that's a one-on-one program. And I mean, if you're interested in that, the best way to contact me is, if you're a Facebook person, the best way to contact me is via Facebook. And then my email address is fiona@fionacutts.com. And I'm also creating other ways of working with me that are, not one-on-one. I'm starting to create a group space where ladies can come together, and I teach elements of the program. And I've learned that this kind of 3-step framework is what really works. So every week I teach an exercise that comes from mainly from the first two stages of the program. And that's a way of getting to know me, and I guess starting in a slower way.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. And we'll put all of the details for your group and your email and everything in the show notes. So that'll be there for everyone to find you. But it's been really lovely to have you. And I think just a nice way of looking at something different, something a little bit maybe taboo to a lot of people. So yeah, I definitely recommend anyone that's listening to this and it resonates to join your Facebook group, because obviously find out more. But a bit of a closing thing that I have on this podcast is I call it soul to soul, and it's almost like a message that either you'd give to your younger self or someone that's listening. What does your heart feel called to share?
Do you know what came to me is, everything's okay, just keep on going. That's my message for you sensitive, shy ladies, and for everyone else who may be listening.
Yeah.
Everything's okay, just keep on going.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you so much for joining me, Fiona. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. I think it's really important. And yeah, everyone knows where to find you in the notes for sure. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to meet you and to be on this. It's just delightful. Thank you so much.
If this episode resonated with you, please do like, follow and share with someone that you know would benefit. If you're looking to dive in deeper to becoming your most unapologetic, most authentic, shining self, please do head to my website and join my newsletter, where you'll find out about all of my upcoming events and speaking opportunities and all of the things that I have going on. And also, if you would like to work with me, please do drop me a DM on any of my socials or through my website. Love and light.